Hey everybody, welcome to Shooting the Shit with Yankee. As always, I'm Yankee, so let's start shooting. Today's topic is the militarization and corruption of police. Is it a big problem? Is there as big a problem as a lot of people seem to think there is with police corruption and police militarization? Or is it just not really a big deal? Or is it worse than people even say? Are we ignoring the problem? What do you think? Is it something that concerns you? Are you concerned about corruption in law enforcement? Are you concerned about the militarization of law enforcement? Or are you thin blue line, more power to them, go jackbooted thugs, whatever? I think everyone knows my opinion. That's one of the things I'm most worried about these days, because I think police are the greatest threats to our freedom. Because when it comes time that the government has to wrangle people back in, put us back in our place, the first line of their defense is going to be police. When they start making curfews and saying no protests, no gathering, who do you think is going to enforce that? It's going to be the police. And if you think, oh, the police are going to be on our side, yeah, think again. I don't think history has shown that. And modern times experience don't show that. As soon as there's a curfew and the governor tells them, hey, you got to keep people in their house, or hey, they're not allowed to assemble, you got to break them up, and you decide you're going to assemble or you're going to be out, they're going to see that as a challenge to their authority, and they're going to start cracking heads. They show that every day. That is the type of jackbooted thug that the country hires nowadays, police officers. As soon as you challenge their authority, they ain't going to be on your side. And they're going to use the excuse of, I was just doing my job. We've had cops come in here in my live chats before and say, I totally disagree with red flag laws and most cops are against them and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, would you enforce them? Well, of course, I'm just doing my job. So I don't trust police. There is too much corruption in police departments right now. Just pay attention to the news. There's entire police departments being disbanded right now because they are terrorizing their communities. It is the police that enforces every single jackbooted rule that the government puts forward these days. When I go up, I know I hear a lot of people say, oh, the police are very pro-gun. Really? Because every time I go to a Senate hearing, it's the police departments and the police unions that are standing up there saying, we need these common sense gun control laws so that our people will be safe on the streets, so they can go home to their family at night. And that's the number one thing. If they have to violate rights, take away your property, or shoot first, ask questions later, that's what they got to do, because they got to go home first to their children. That's the number one thing. Not your rights, not your life, not your freedom. And like I said, they have been building law enforcement up as private standing armies for the last 20 or 30 years. The militarization of police is just to create standing armies inside of communities that obey the government. And that's what they've become. So I think we don't talk enough about the problem. I don't think we talk enough about how the system has been corrupted and how we need to get back to good old-fashioned law enforcement and policing, and get away from this jackbooted standing armies that the federal government has placed in every city. We need to get away from that. It's one of the greatest threats to our freedom today. And like I said, I don't think that surprises anybody. That's how I feel. So let's go over here and see how other people feel. Let's see if anybody's weighing in over here. Ghost Shadow was the first one to weigh in and said, book The Frozen Shield, an Alaskan cover-up. State trooper wrote about corruption. His dogs were killed and bomb in his car. Audit of state trooper evidence. Over 700 firearms missing in 12 months. He's talking about a book someone wrote in Alaska about the corruption of law enforcement up there, and how when one police officer tried to speak out, his dogs were killed. They bombed his car. This was law enforcement doing this. And this is not uncommon. You might think, well, this is just a random, isolated incident. No. You know why you don't see cops speak out? Because they know what will happen to them if they do. And that's why people say, well, most cops are good. It's just the system that's bad. No, that's not true. Because most cops are willing to sit back quietly and let the system be what it is, as long as they keep their paychecks, and as long as they get their authority, as long as they get to have that badge and gun. So no, anybody that sits back and lets the system be what it is, they're not good cops. Danny Pint said, make him rescue a dog. That's something else we're talking about before the chat started. Johnny Mandrick chimed in and said, as the son of a cop, it's embarrassing how some of the police operate now. If my gun is drawn, I have all the time in the world to see what you are pulling out. Exactly. Yeah, that whole, oh, they made a furtive movement. I had to shoot them because someone, especially like after you tell them, I need your ID, and they reach for ID and you shoot them, like Philando Castile, things like that, that it's on tape, and still, very little done about it. There's so many, and I'm not making this a racial thing. I don't think the police abuse blacks any more than they abuse whites when you look at the number of times that there are interactions between police, between white police, black citizens, white citizens, black cops, white citizens, black citizens. I don't think race matters. Whenever there's an interaction between cop and police, I think the police are brutalizing people's rights and people themselves. And it just so happens that black people interact with police more often because they commit more crimes. But I don't think it's about race. I just think the police are the problem. Modern day police are the problem. I know a lot of cops who now say they would not become cops today if they, retired police officers, that they're like, I would want nothing to do with today's system. The type of people that used to be weeded out by the mental health screenings are the type of people they want today. Used to be, if you were ex-military, they probably weren't going to hire you. Now that's what they want, because they didn't want soldiers who just follow orders. They wanted people who thought and enforced the law and protected people's rights. It's not what they want nowadays. They want soldiers. Jack Q. Public. Today was President Trump's deadline for the DOJ and ATF to make the recommendations for safeguarding Second Amendment rights. Any news on that today? Well, that's a different topic altogether. We'll save that. We'll talk about that later. Danny Pinot, I don't know how he says his last name. He said, it's a serious threat. I don't want to rely on cops being in a good mood toward me and my tools. Yeah, that is something. People talk all the time, cops are so pro-gun. And then you see, oh, he was shot because he had a gun in the car. He didn't do any crime, didn't commit any crime, never has committed crime, but he was shot because he had a gun in the car. We've seen the videos with cops overreacting because someone has a gun in their car, or just harassing people on the street because they're carrying guns. Oh, I'm just doing my job. It's my job to create this dangerous situation where I have a mindset where I'm already decided I'm going to shoot first at the slightest provocation because I'm not taking any risk. I'm just doing my job. Mr. Furley, militarization of police escalates tension, I feel. It has definitely escalated tensions. Nowadays, it's like anytime there's a rally, I think one of the reasons there's so much violence at rallies is because they know they can create it. The state knows they can create it. All they have to do is send some people to a rally to throw the first brick, and they know the police are there and ready to respond, and they know they can turn it into a giant scene, and they can say, see, we wanted to let people assemble, but when we do, this is what happens. People get hurt. We're doing it for safety. We're taking away your right to assemble for your safety. It's a really, really, really huge problem, said Mike White. I agree, Mike. It's a very big problem. I think a lot of people don't pay enough attention to it. And I think too many people say, yeah, you're one of those defunded police people, as soon as you say anything about it. No one said anything about defunding the police. We said the police are corrupt, and they need to be weeded out, and they need to be reevaluating who they hire and how they enforce the laws. And probably most police departments do need to be smaller, and maybe spend some of that money more on community service, mental health services, etc. We don't need 10 cops for every 100 people. It's just not what we need. Crime, we have more cops now than we've ever had. Crime is at some of the lowest levels it's ever been. And it was decreasing before we started this huge militarization of police. Crime was on a downward spiral, and they decided, hey, we need a standing army inside cities because, hey, if crime gets low and people start talking to each other, they're going to realize we're the bad guys, not, the people we're telling them are the bad guys, and we need someone to protect us. We need a big police army. If you want to see how police act as enforcers for the elite, just spend a day in New York City. Spud Gun, U.S. cops' biggest crime gangs in the country. They're very big crime gangs. I mean, look at some of the police departments that are being disbanded because of it. And look at these people that come to Community meetings are shaking. They're so upset because they've been just terrorized by the police. One guy was terrorized by the police because he made the mistake of asking his neighbor to not park on the sidewalk, and his neighbor was a cop. So from that day forward, he was harassed. His house ended up being raided. He had drugs planted in his car, all this stuff, just because he asked his neighbor not to park on the sidewalk, not to block the sidewalk with his car. So it's a huge problem. Mark Lax, I don't like the militarization, but can't stop it. You can stop it. We're the taxpayers. We can stop it. We can take any person out of office that decides they're going to do this. We could start being thinking people and start thinking like, we don't need giant standing armies inside the cities. And all they're being used is for, when they're not cracking heads, is revenue gathering, increasing taxes. They're basically tax men with clubs and guns. So we can definitely say we want less. And if you don't make it to where there's less of them doing less things and abusing less people, we're going to vote you out. We could do that. You could stop being fooled by the, defund the police is evil, and not even think about the actual subject. Just be turned off by the slogan. It's too easy to turn people off with buzzwords and slogans these days to where they don't even think about the issue. Chunky D 77 says, I hate the cops because as a child, we trust cops, but they are allowed to lie right to your face. I've had cops lie to me so many fucking times. It's not even funny. I had one cop lie to me about what he was going to do to my motorcycle one time because he pulled me over because I turned left on a red light. Totally legal in my state to turn left on a red light in a motorcycle because you won't set off the sensors, so everybody behind you would sit there forever. So I turned left on a red light, he pulled me over. And he got all in my face, and I said, hey, listen, I have a right to turn left on red. I even had a copy of the statute in my trunk, in my box on the back of my bike. And I showed it to him. And he was like, are you trying to be a problem? Are you trying to be a problem? Because what I'm supposed to do right now is I'm supposed to impound your bike. I'm supposed to have it taken right now, and I'm supposed to arrest you. And I was like, over a minor traffic violation? You're saying that's the law? That you're supposed to arrest me and take my bike? Not only was he denying what the law was that I showed him, but he's making up laws on the spot. But was that it? Is that all the people weighed in? No, we got one more here. Wheels and Saddle Garage. I agree with the corruption and the need to fix it. For conversation's sakes, what's your fix for the folks who video interactions while being unnecessarily rude and cursing the officer just to get views? Well, that's, you don't counter a negative with another negative. You don't get to say, well, yeah, that's bad, but it doesn't matter because this is bad too. No, people who do that are assholes. If you're going up and harassing a cop for no reason, well, then you're an asshole. But if cops are the problem, you don't get to say, well, there's some people that take advantage of it. And the only reason they're taking advantage of it for views is because they know the cops are going to act crazy. They're going to get it on video and they're going to get filmed. So that's actually just a symptom of the problem that police are crazy assholes. So I don't blame those people, but because they're, like I said the other day, do you blame the system or do you blame the people that profit off the system? I blame the system. So yeah, one negative doesn't counter another. But it looks like that's it for today. I want to thank everyone for coming. I think we went a little long on this one because it's something I get a little heated about because people are so indoctrinated into that thin blue line garbage. And I'm like, especially conservatives, since when are you supposed to trust authority? When you give people authority, that's when they should be under the most scrutiny. And that's when they should be held the most accountable, not the least. They shouldn't be worshiped. They shouldn't have the president saying, I want to give cops total immunity for anything they do while they're wearing their uniform in the line of their duty. If they're told to do it and whatever they got to do to get it done, they have immunity for that. President Trump is saying that. And he even wants to say anytime anybody harms a cop, anybody kills a cop, that's an automatic death penalty, further deifying them. That's one thing I will fight him on tooth and nail. And anybody that says that. And if you don't, well, then you might want to reevaluate your positions and think about why are you so blind just simply because it's said by a certain person. But like I said, that's the last person weighing in today. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. If you want to weigh in on one of these topics, you can still weigh in on this one if you come to one of our live chats and talk about it in the open chat afterwards. We do open chat after every chat where we can talk about whatever. But if you want to weigh in on any topic, whatever the topic of the day is, come to our live chats. We do them every night at 6 p.m. Pacific time, except for Wednesday when they're at 7. Krashnikev said, Popo are just bureaucrats with guns. Well, they're revenue gatherers. What they are, they're enforcers. But as I was saying, come into our live chats. I hope to see you at one soon. Until then, remember, always carry and stay safe until I see you again.